Uh, Hi everyone, my name is Abhinav. Welcome back to this latest edition of CareerCarta Talker Top series. And I have with me today Mansa.
Abhinav,
Hey Mansa, how are you doing?
doing well. How are you?
Good, absolutely good. So Mansa was a GMAT course recipient, and we are first of all we would like to congratulate Mansa for getting some good admits, including NUS. And we will talk in greater detail of her journey throughout the series. During the course of the interview, I would request all the participants to keep themselves on mute, and I'll give you a chance to ask questions in the end if we have time, right? So, hey, Mansa, welcome to Career Kata Talk series. Before we begin this, can you like sort of introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name is Mansa, as you all know. I'm a Marwadi, but I'm settled in Kerala since over 18 plus years. I did my schooling as well as undergraduation in Kerala. I did BCom in finance and taxation, and post that I got placed with Goldman Sachs in Bangalore in the operations division. I worked in Goldman Sachs for around 3 years, 2 months. I also did a summer internship with them. I'm other than that, I enjoy dancing and baking and reading. So yeah, that's about me.
Okay, that's very nice to know. So, Mansa, can you tell us like how did you decide on the GMAT route? Like, what was the point where you decided that you wanted to pursue an MBA? Was it like a long thought, or during your course with the bank?
Sure. Initially, initially I had plans to write CAT
Okay.
immediately after my BCom got over. But I also realized that I'm not really sure what I want to do, and MBA is just not the immediate answer after undergraduation. There needs to be some reason behind it. There needs to be some rationale behind it, which is why I took the decision to take up my PPO from Goldman, and I thought I'll spend some time in the company to see what are my strengths and weaknesses. How is it that a company operates? Do I really want to be in the finance industry? And that's why I dropped the idea of CAT and started looking at working. And when I joined Goldman, also I was not adamant on doing an MBA. I was keeping my options flexible. All I wanted to do was explore which industry I want to go to, and how I want my career to kind of progress. In like 2 or 3 years, I started realizing that while my career might be going very well, my knowledge is not really increasing of the whole industry. I knew a lot about my company. I did not know a lot of things. I did not know how the industry in general works. I did not know what is the history behind certain tactics or strategies, and I felt that my peer network was extremely restricted to my college and school friends as well as my friends from work. Keeping all of this in mind, I realized that it's time I kind of step up and upskill myself, and MBA seemed to be the best option. So the reason why I didn't go for that and the reason why I went for GMAT is because I wanted to go and study abroad, because I feel that certain colleges abroad and also certain colleges in India which accept GMAT look at the holistic profile of a student, and not just their marks. So I mean, I've tried to ensure that my profile is very wholesome right from school, even in college, so on and so
Understood.
forth. Um, since I had WorkX, and since I was willing to go abroad or maybe look at some of the institutions that accept GMAT in India, I made up my mind to do an MBA, and that's how GMAT came into place.
Okay, that's great. You have an interesting history and profile. So we will come back to that maybe in greater detail in the later part of the interview. Can you like sort of tell us when did you decide to appear for GMAT, and how long did it take for you to like sort of prepare for the same?
So I gave my GMAT last year uh, in December 2019. I also gave it before once in November 2019. So
Okay.
those were the two attempts that I gave.
Hmm.
Um, Initially, by around 2018, I had started going for coaching, but I was not really consistent with it because I had extremely erratic work timings. So I attended a few classes in an institute in Bangalore, but I was unable to cope with it and I had to drop out. I was also not very sure if I wanted to do an MBA. It seemed more peer pressure and more parental pressure, so I was not internally convinced.
Okay.
I guess somewhere around 2019 Jan, I realized that it's high time I upskill. Like I personally felt that it's the right time for me to invest my time in this, and I started clearing up work for myself. Like for example, um, I, I had a very erratic work schedule, so I wanted to ensure that I'm able to make time for it. So initially, I built that discipline in me to what do you call to be able to incorporate some time to be able to study.
Sure.
I guess by August 2019, I started studying and I gave my exam once in November and then again in December.
Okay. And how much? How much? Okay. And how much did you score? Like the first time and the second time?
The first time I scored a 620 and the second time I scored a 700.
Okay. So that's a massive, massive improvement. What changed in that 1 month?
I think the first exam, I was honestly extremely nervous.
Okay.
Really wanted to apply for the round two of some of my target colleges. For some
Oh,
reason, I had this notion that a round two admit would give me an upper hand. If I go for round three, I probably would not get selected because already slots would be full. As bizarre as it sounds, I kind of had that in my head. I was also really nervous about the essays and the interviews part.
okay.
Um, so I felt that if I finish my exam in November, I would have a lot of time to write my essays. So I feel that I focused a lot on what will happen after the exam and didn't really focus on the actual exam and how to combat anxiety on the day of the exam.
Hmm.
Um, I honestly um, had done a lot of prep during for my November exam, but I hadn't really convinced my mind that I'm going to write this exam and I should just be calm about it and approach it in the right way.
Okay.
Once the November exam tanked, I took a break for like a week because I really needed that.
Okay.
Because I was studying at a stretch. I had also taken some days off work, like around 3 weeks of work to spend my time on GMAT.
Okay.
So, so, I, and I took a week off from November after November. The first thing I did after that was get my ESR report, which is the enhanced score report, which I
Okay.
think is extremely important. It's a very detailed overview of what you have done right and what you have done wrong, and just how you performed during the exam. Once I got the enhanced score report, I saw and analyzed that sentence correction is where I am messing up. Geometry is where I really need to improve. Whereas I actually thought I'm not so great at reading comprehension and critical reasoning. Turns out I was actually decent at them.
Hmm.
So that's when I realized that my strategy needs to change and I need to look at different areas while I am consistent at the areas which I'm good at.
Okay.
So once I had my ESR report, I spent a lot of time strengthening my concepts instead of practicing 100 and 200 questions. Because
Sure.
previously what I used to do is I used to just answer like 100, 200 questions or like that's just a number, but large number of questions. I'll just see the answer, but I'll not really understand why the OG thinks that the other answer is the correct answer. I think it's
Understood.
really important to see the answer key and understand what is the approach they have used to choose an answer as right or wrong. So what I did after November was even if I got an answer correct, I used to still go to the answer key and see what was the approach the OG used to choose that particular right answer, whereas did I use the same approach to choose the right answer. And
Fair.
obviously with the wrong answers also I used to go through the answer key.
Fair. Fair.
And I was not nervous for the December exams. So that made a huge difference. Ate properly and slept well before the exam.
Sure. So there's a very common question a lot of people have. and I divide this question into two parts. First, what's the best way for working professionals like you to sort of start preparing for GMAT? And also, like, where does professional help comes into picture, right? So, like, what are the factors one should consider if you are looking for some professional help in GMAT preparation, right? So, if you can give your experience, that would be great.
Sure. So I'll be very honest, it was very difficult for me to make time
Hmm.
during work.
Hmm.
But I also realized that this is a priority for me. So
Hmm.
I had to do a little bit of priority management with my manager. Unfortunately, I was not in a position to tell my manager that I'm writing GMAT, as
Hmm.
I was also up for promotion that year. And I was not really sure if I would use my GMAT score and apply the same year, since GMAT is available for 5 years.
Sure.
um, I did, however, tell my manager that I want some kind of work life balance. And I went with my book of work to him and I told him that XYZ are the items that I have on my plate, and I would like to take some time off to focus on myself.
Hmm.
And he was very supportive that way. And we worked together. Um, to figure out what are the things that I can offboard from my plate. So that's the first thing I did. I convinced myself that GMAT is my priority for 2019. And at the same time, I didn't want to completely let go of the good work that I had done in my company. So
Sure.
I told my manager that I need my work life balance, and I just didn't stop working.
Hmm.
And then apart from that, I used to um, wake up early, and I changed my work timings a little bit. For example, I tend to study better when I'm better early in the morning.
Okay.
So I logged in late and tried logging off early,
Okay.
and so that I could sleep and I could wake up early. That is one thing I did. And Saturdays and Sundays, I spent slightly more time and
Sure.
dedicated more time for GMAT. One thing which I used to do was, actually, my commute was very long. My office was like an hour away from my home.
Sure.
So, and I used to live in Bangalore, and like, Bangalore has pathetic traffic.
Sure.
So I used to use that time to. There are some Instagram pages, like for example, GMAT Official has an Instagram page, and there is GMAT Club's Instagram page, and GMAT Club as an app is also there. So I used to spend some time just. I had it all in my phone. So
Okay.
in that commute, I used to do like easy questions, not very hard questions, because I wouldn't recommend that to everyone, because some people tend to feel dizzy while traveling,
Hmm.
when they are reading a lot. But it worked for
Hmm.
me. So I used to go and I used to filter out on only official guide questions, because some of these applications have questions from different various places. So
Sure.
always go for only official guide questions. So I used to do that, filter from that, and um, choose the easy ones, just so that I'm just up to speed.
Sure.
And like, I always have this in mind. Apart from that, I took test series and classes from
Hmm.
CareerCarta, and and it was very nice because your team tried to ensure that the classes were always in sync with my work timings. And sometimes I remember I used to request for some late in the night classes, and you all were aware that I was very nervous. And you and both the teachers, Piyush sir and Pratik sir, who taught me, tried to ensure that they worked around their timetable and their schedule to fit my classes. So I had some material that you all had also emailed to me for certain subjects, and since they were in PDF and they were in my email, those were also things which I used to kind of prep while I was in my journey. I was given a list of idioms, and idioms just doesn't come to you by reading it once. You need to read
Sure.
it at least 3 or 4 times. So I used to
Sure.
tend to do that while I was traveling to work.
Sure. Sure. So, in terms of, so you spoke about flexibility, and obviously working professionals like you, I mean, we make it a point that we are flexible because otherwise it doesn't work, right? So that's something which is a conscious effort by us. But can you specify more on your sectional strategy as well? What worked for you specifically in those sections? Uh, that will help, future aspirants a lot how to go about, right?
Okay. For quant, I had a very simple strategy. I think when I started, I'm a vigorous note taker, so I used various books apart from the material that CareerCarta had provided to me. I had also, for example, bought the OG Manhattan Power Score, to name a few books, and I had gone through all those books and made notes for each section. So I had like a separate notebook for sentence corrections, theory, and like grammar rules. I had a separate notebook for like quant, and within quant, the various topics that are there, like number properties, geometry. I had made notes and I had collated formulas from the various books.
Hmm.
And I had a separate strategy for like geometry, a separate book for geometry. So I think what really worked for me that was that I took a lot of notes, and
Hmm.
I tend to have like a visual memory that when I was writing down the notes, the formulas were kind of getting recorded in my head, because that's just how I am. So I think it varies from person to person. If you are a vigorous note taker, or if you're someone who enjoys taking notes, then I can vouch that this will work for you. Um, so sectional strategy, I think for quant, the one thing which I can tell is that always know your basics. Get your
Sure.
easy and medium questions right.
Sure.
Like, you know, when you look at a question, whether you can just apply a formula to it, or do you really need to like work in a different way.
Sure.
And what this is my understanding, I'm that whenever I got an easy or a medium question wrong, my overall sectional score for quant was extremely low. Whereas, for
Okay.
example, if I got like a couple of 700 or difficult level questions wrong, it didn't really dip a lot.
Sure.
So I ensured that my basics were very solid.
Hmm.
I was very careful. I used to ensure that I did a lot of these easy medium questions as well, so that the moment they come to me, I'm able to apply the formula and able to like solve them quickly. That
Sure.
ensures that I also get more time on for my 700 level questions or the harder questions. Something which I also did for my first exam, which I avoided for the second exam, was solving the data sufficiency question. So, like
Okay.
a data sufficiency question only wants to know yes or no.
Hmm.
Can this information be, is this a yes or is this a no? And you know, after solving it, after using the statements given, you will reach a point where you know ki you will be able to get the answer. So
Sure.
you don't necessarily need to, it's not like a school exam where you need to write down all the steps and literally go to the last part saying LHS is equal to RHS. I
Yep.
mean, as long as you're clear that somewhere ahead your thinking is right, and either statement or one statement or no statement, whatever, can solve it, you should be confidently able to tick off the option. This is not something which comes very easily, it only comes with practice. So I realized that data sufficiency was my weakness, so I did a lot of data sufficiency questions, and I used this tactic of kind of like thinking for forward thinking, what could be the answer, like am I going in the right direction, what could be the obstacles that could come. And I saved a lot of time during data sufficiency by just not like writing down a lot of steps, but just thinking how I could like get the answer.
Okay. Uh, Please go ahead. You're saying something.
For verbal, um, for reading comprehension, so luckily my role at work involved me reading like around 20 to 30 documents day in and day out. So it my reading speed was decent, but I used to get very overwhelmed with any of these passages which were related to biology or had really huge words. So I it used to kind of catch me off guard, because I'll be stuck with that complicated word in the passage and I'll just keep reading it. So anytime any complicated word came in the passage, I just called it X in my head. So I
Okay.
didn't fixate on that, um, because I didn't try pronouncing it in my head, or I didn't try like understanding that difficult organism's name. I just called it X. And I spent a lot of time reading the passage. Like, for example, I used to give like 6 to 6.5 minutes to a passage. Out of that, I spent 4 minutes thoroughly understanding a passage, and the remaining 2 minutes solving the questions. And that really helped me out a lot.
Fair. One common questions we like. There's a common query we have from students who are not from technical background. If quant is sort of extra heavy for them, right? So I think you coming from the non-engineering or non-math background, do you think like quant is extra heavy, or like it's like the exam is fair in the sense that if you prepare well, the level of questions is not something where you would have a seemingly disadvantage when you start preparing for the exam.
I actually think that for me personally, verbal was a challenge than
Sure.
quant. Initially, when I had decided to give the GMAT, I think it was because of my previous experience with CAT, because I was finding CAT math extremely hard. But with GMAT, I was extremely nervous. But when I
Hmm.
gave my first mock, I
Hmm.
ended up getting a good score for quant and a pretty poor score for verbal. And I think that's because we take English for granted sometimes.
Yep.
But no, I don't think that if you are an engineer, you will have an upper hand at quant, because
Sure.
that GMAT's quant is very smart. Like for example, it's testing your ability to find the answer. It's not really like testing you to come up with some major formulae of your own or anything of that sort. You should just be able to read the question and understand the question properly. As long as you're thorough with your basics, you can always put 2 3 formulas together and solve it. So it's not biased towards engineers.
Sure.
That
Okay, it's very important to hear this from you because we keep consulting our students that it's not the case. We have a lot of people who are non-engineering background or non-math background, and they come to us and say quant is what they are struggling at. But then they realize when you start taking mocks and you realize that it's the verbal where they are struggling.
yeah.
So coming from you makes more sense because bulk of our students are from math background. But yeah, that helps a lot. Okay. Another thing which I wanted to ask was how many mock tests did you take? Like, did you pace them in a particular way, a weekly mock test, and while the exam was closer, and what was the frequency of those mock tests?
Um, I gave 4 mock tests.
Okay.
Mm, no, actually, I think I gave 4 to 5 mock tests.
Okay.
I paced them by a week. You can
Okay.
say on average a week. So I used
Okay.
to give a mock test, and
Okay.
I used to spend the entire day understanding the mock test.
Okay.
And I think that's how it should be done, because you should understand where you have gone wrong,
Sure.
and I should analyze. So I
Sure.
try not doing multiple mock tests back to back, because it's very extremely it takes a lot on your stamina. One mock test tactic that I used was I had already booked my exam, and
Sure.
it was 8:30 in the morning. So I used to take my mock test also at that time. So I used
Oh.
to tune my body for that particular time in the morning, so that it my mind starts to think and starts to process complicated information at that particular time of the day. I'm not a morning person, which is why I
Okay.
had to do that. So that was one thing
That
which
worked
I
for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's important to pace your mock test, because once you have taken a mock test and you have analyzed it, you should spend the remaining week fixing those issues and then only go for the second mock test.
Understood. One of my few of the last questions I have. One of them is any exam day special strategies you made? And I know you have spoken about it, about your nervousness in your first attempt. So, what transformed you into this confidence test taker from a nervous one? Like, was there anything which went specifically right for you or you worked upon?
I think I just told myself that this exam is not going to make or break anything.
Sure,
And we have chosen an exam like GMAT, which you can write multiple times. And you should be glad that an option like that is there, because
sure,
in other exams that is not available.
sure,
So yeah, so I convinced myself that it's not a make or break situation, and I convinced myself that I should get a score of my choice, um, than just push myself beyond a limit and not get a, a great score at all, like nothing at all.
sure, sure,
Um, I also ensured that I got good sleep the previous night and I ate well in the morning. I know these are really small things, but I feel they take you a long way,
sure,
because you need to be conscious during the exam, and that will only happen if you're well hydrated and well fed.
sure.
So it's important. I didn't do any last minute studying or last minute idiom crunching or anything because I knew that's not going to be of any use.
Sure.
Um, um, yeah, that should be about it.
So, incidentally, these are very important points because we have a lot of students who get very good scores in mock, and then somehow the real exam day, the scores are not up to the mark, right? And it all boils down to the fact, like at that point of time on that day, how you are feeling.
Yeah,
So even we tell our students like a couple of days before the exam, just take a step back and don't try to study. Like one of my favorite things to tell them is that if you couldn't do it in 2 months, you're not going to anyway do it in 2 days, last 2 days, right? So it's
yeah.
better you give yourself a good night's sleep and just take your mind off the test to help you improve your score. Okay, moving on. Which universities were you targeting before the GMAT?
So I was mainly targeting Asia, and among in Asia, I selected three universities: the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad, the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, and the National University of Singapore.
Any particular reason why Asia?
So mostly personal.
Okay,
My family wanted me to be close to India,
sure,
so which is why this seemed to be the best option.
sure,
I also have family in Singapore, so as a single girl child, they wanted me to be in a place which is slightly more safer and secure. Also because I would like to settle sometime somewhere in Asia itself in the long run, at least as of now. And Singapore is also like the APAC headquarters for most companies. It's got a thriving financial industry, and it's got a great work culture with a very cosmopolitan crowd.
sure.
So it seemed like a good place to go and to study. I was also looking at 1 year courses, 1 to 1.5 year courses, and there was also a financial budget which I had in mind.
Sure.
And so, keeping all these constraints in mind, these were the three universities that I could zero down on.
And where did you manage to finally get into?
I got through all three.
Okay,
I have currently accepted my admission with the National University of Singapore.
that is great. And I believe you did manage a scholarship as well, right?
With Nanyang, yes.
That's really nice. So, yeah, uh, that's really great. Uh, I'm out of my questions. I will just 5 minutes for our audience if they have any questions to type it out, and I'll ask you. Right, I'll pass it on to you. In the meantime, when do you? How is the paperwork going? Have you applied for your visa? Everything is done.
So, because of the current situation, the NUS has decided not to have online classes because they feel the real essence of MBA is like peer-to-peer networking and having actual classes. So,
Sure.
as of now, they have postponed their classes to Jan 2021.
Okay.
Paperwork should begin by October mid.
Okay.
And right now, we are in this transitional phase where we are just talking to alums, trying to understand the feel of how a typical day at NUS is. But
Okay.
I'm guessing things will really start kicking in from October.
Sure. Sure. And how long is the course? Like 15 months?
15 months.
16 months. Yeah, I somehow remembered about 15 months. Great. And any particular concentration? I'm guessing you'll go for finance.
Yeah, so I have finance in mind, and I also have strategy and innovation in mind. Some of the
Sure.
projects that I did in my previous company were very much related to deciding the team strategy towards a particular idea. Um, Deciding a team strategy towards what is happening in the, like, so I dealt a lot with Brexit, which is a very
Okay.
current world issue. So that's when I really realized that I may enjoy change management, strategy, and innovation. I'm also someone who who's worked with nonprofits for a very long time. So if at all I'm taking finance, I would like to understand the impact
Okay.
investing world. So these are the two areas where I need to kind of figure out how I want to
Yeah, I
work.
mean, something should be left for the B school. Otherwise, if you figured out everything on your own, then there's no fun in attending
Yeah.
a college, right? That's nice. Do we? I don't see any. Uh, Ayan, do we have any questions from the audience? Okay. Okay. So I have just one question for you, Mansa, till now.
Mhm.
Uh, this is from what's- Ranjit, and he's saying that for a working professional, especially working in Goldman Sachs, uh, exactly how many months did you take to appear for your second attempt? That was in November or December, you said, from the time when you started the preparation. So that is from Ranjit.
Okay. Hey Ranjit, thank you for your question. So I started my preparation, like proper preparation, by August 2019. I gave my first attempt in November. I gave my second attempt by December 23rd or 24th.
Okay.
So there was like almost a 1.5 month gap between my first attempt and my second attempt.
Sure. Uh, I have one question, and this is from Suruchi. That's more like on your profile point of view. There is GMAT, and then there is NUS, and then there is Nanyang, right? So she just wanted to know, like, is there like any specific reason apart from, obviously you told your personal reason, but in terms of ranking, probably ISB scores slightly higher over the other two universities. So is there any particular reason apart from your personal reason for choosing Nanyang?
I actually chose NUS, not Nanyang. So, as per Financial Times ranking, NUS is actually ranked higher than ISB, but rankings was not one of the reasons why I chose NUS. I was
Sure.
looking for a smaller class size. ISB has a class size of around 800 plus, and NUS has a class size of 80 full-time students this year.
Okay.
I wanted to ensure that I learn from a closer peer group, and that's just how I am in general. I learn, absorb more when I'm with a smaller group of people than with a large group of people.
Sure.
Additionally, due to reasons of their own, the Indian School of Business decided to take online classes this year because they did not want to keep their students waiting. So they wanted to ensure that the students which they have taken, they start off with online classes and then get them on campus sometime around this year. However, I was not personally very keen on online classes.
Sure.
And which is why at the same time NUS was very sure that they will only be doing physical classrooms, uh, which is why I decided to move to NUS. Those would be the two primary reasons.
Correct. That's a common question. A lot of students we have consulted this year who successfully made into US colleges, most of them have deferred. I know about USC Marshall, like there was about 35 students, Indian students who got into, and about 23 of them have deferred in some shape or form. So it's a very ongoing debate whether people want to like sort of begin their classes in online format or wait. So I don't know. I think it's like split down the middle. I know people who prefer to defer, and then there are people like you who just want to attend like live on like sort of on campus programs. So that's a
Right.
difficult one to answer. I mean, to each his own. There are pros and cons of both ways, right? So thanks, Mansa, for your time. It's really gracious of you to take some time out.
No, that's okay.
And thanks a lot for being a student. And yeah, this was Topper Talks, Career Carta Topper Talk series, Mansa Barotia. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, CareerCarta, for all the help with my GMAT. Really very helpful. Thank you.
Sure, anytime. Thanks a lot and all the best, Mansa.
Thank you.